With the last module, we took a major step forward because whilst still a lot of useful things like working with the database, authentication and so on are missing, we now have the general pattern set, and you should have a general understanding of how a Node and Node Express application works, how the flow is, how you connect your different pieces, and which part of your code plays which role. So therefore, this was a crucial part, and now we're going to work a bit on the course project, and therefore we'll practice what you learned. We'll add a couple of new views, and we'll try to move this a bit further in the direction of a more realistic online shop. Now, one important note. This module is completely optional. You can, of course, skip it and simply download the finished code, which will add this module, at the end of this module or in the first lecture of the next module. So if you're not interested in practicing this and adding all these new views and controllers, and you simply want to learn the next concept, you can skip ahead, you can skip this module or fast forward through it. Otherwise, let's dive in and let's continue working on our course project. So back in code, let's quickly think about our project. In the end, what we're building here is an online shop. So what we need is a starting page. We need a page where we can view all the products that are listed. We also want to be able to create new products, to edit products, as an administrator, also to delete products. We want to be able to add products to a shopping cart, to go to a checkout page and pay for the products. And then also as a customer, we want to be able to see our orders. So that's a lot of stuff, and we'll build all that logic throughout the course, but we can already get started. And for that, I will get started in the views, and I'll try to add the views for the different things we'll need. We got add, product, and shop EJS thus far. Now, let's add more views here, and I will also split them in subfolders to group them together, basically. I will add an admin subfolder, and I'll move the add product view into the admin subfolder, for example. I'll also add another subfolder, and that will be my shop. So this is the customer-facing part, you could say. And there I'll have my shop EJS file, though I will rename this to product list EJS, because that is what I want to have on this page in the end. It should be a page with a list of all my products. Now this, of course, is not a complete list of all the views, but we already need to add some changes. As I restructured the folder structure here, for the product list, for example, for my includes, this path is not correct anymore. Product list is now in the shop subfolder, so I first of all need to go up one level until I can dive into the includes folder. So here in that path we should have .. which means up one level. And the same here for my navigation. So all that should be done, and also for and EJS here. And of course the same for add product. There you want to go up one level, here also up one level, and down there up one level. With this adjusted, we also need to make sure that we render the correct views, because in our controller, the products controller, we return the shop view here, but this is seen relative from inside the views folder. However, first of all, we renamed this to product list, and second, it's now in a subfolder named shop. So actually we have to go into shop and then / product list. This is the new path to our view. And the same here for add product. Admin add product here. This is now in the admin subfolder, so we should go into the admin folder and then render add product. With these changes in place, if I reload my page here, this should all still work. And indeed, I can still switch, so the existing views are rendered correctly, so that seems to work. Now we can add more views here. And for that, in the shop, for example, I'll have an index page, so the starting page basically. Right now this is my product list. Well, I will add a new area, the products area, which should render the product list, and the starting page should be a different page. And in the end, it will be very similar, but it should display less products, let's say. Now in the shop, I also want to have a product detail.ejs view, where if I click on a product, I can see that. And I want to have a cart EJS view, which I can basically see if I click on the cart in the menu, and we'll have to add this menu item, of course. And there's one remaining view for now, and that is my checkout EJS view, which will be the checkout flow, which we can start from inside the cart. Now in the admin area, we got add product. I also will add added product.ejs so that we can do that too. And I will also add my list or product list.ejs view. Now we got a product list view already in the shop area. The admin, of course, also needs to be able to see that. And just to avoid name clashes or confusion, you could name it like this, wouldn't be a problem. But to not confuse you when I refer to these views, I'll name it products EJS in the admin area and product list in the shop area. But you could absolutely use the same name because they are in different folders. So now we got that set up, and we'll add more if we need more, but that looks decent. Now let's go to the navigation, and there I also need to work on the available navigation items. Because right now, if I structure this a bit different to make it easier to read, like this, we get two navigation items, one for the starting page and one for adding a product in the admin area. Now, of course, you could argue that you in general don't want one navigation with all the normal customer options and all the admin options. But that is something we can tackle later. For now, in the next lecture, I want to continue working on this and add all the links to all my views for the moment so that we can then refine this throughout the course. So let's work on the navigation, and for now let's simply add links to all important views. So we got our /shop route, so to the starting page. I also want to have a products link going to, let's say, /products, and this is a route which doesn't exist yet, which we'll have to add. I want to set the active CSS class there if the path is /products, and in our controller where we render this view, we of course have to make sure that we then provide this path property with the right value. Now this is one additional link. The product detail is something we don't need to add here because we'll go there by clicking on a product, not from the main navigation. The cart is something I want to have here though. So we'll add another item here in the navigation, my cart, which should be reachable by going to /cart, and of course the path I check here that also is /cart. But don't forget, this path here doesn't have to match this path here, but it's simply easier to remember if we keep that close together. Now for the admin area, I want to have that add product link still. I don't need an edit product link because that should be triggered by clicking on a product in the admin products list, but obviously I need a link for that then. So besides add product, I want to have a admin products link here, which simply goes to admin products and loads a list of all the products for the administrator with administrative options. And therefore here the path is also admin products. So this is looking good. And if we now reload this, we see a bunch of new items in our main navigation. Now in mobile view, this gets, well, a bit cut off. For now, I will leave this and add it in between sections and then also append the code, of course, to make this responsive. Let's not focus on the CSS now, though. Let's focus on our node logic. So we got all these items added, and of course, cart and so on, these routes all don't work because we haven't registered these routes. Now, this is a great practice for you. We got the links here, so you know which paths I want to use. You can now go ahead and add these routes, add fitting controller functions, or even new controllers if you want, and make sure you render the appropriate views. And if you're really feeling fancy, you can even go into these views and render the navigation as well as some dummy content there. This is all stuff we did thus far. We'll do it together in the next lecture, but definitely feel free to try this on your own first. So let's start with registering the routes then. And for this, I will go into the routes folder. There we have admin and shop, and this still sounds like a decent differentiation. And let's start with the shop related routes. Right now we got the starting page. Now we will also need a get route for /products. Because if we have a look into our navigation EJS file, this is this new link which we added. So /products. We'll also need /cart because that's another new link we have. And this will also be a get route. And I will, of course, also add controller functions, but I'll first define all the routes. So I'll also need /cart, and later I'll also need a route for the checkout process. So /checkout is already something we can also add. And obviously, you are free to edit any of these paths to your likings. Just make sure to then adjust the links you might have in your application. Now, besides visiting /products, we will also need a single product. And that will then actually contain some new logic to which I will come back. So let's stick to these general routes for now. Of course, we also need more than just the shop routes. We also got some admin routes. In the navigation, for example, we got the new admin products here. And then we'll also need a route for editing. We'll add this later. And for deleting, also something I'll add later. So for now, let's simply go to admin.js. And there I will add a new get route because I want to load a new page. And that will just be /products. Now, never forget, this is, just as the other routes, also already in a path that starts with /admin, because this is what we filter for in app.js. And of course, we'll also need a controller function for that. Okay, so this is looking good. Now, how about the controllers? Now, we can follow different approaches there. Obviously, most of the things we have are still related to products, but we also got some new routes like cart or checkout. And later we'll also add orders, for example. So we got that. Now, these are implicitly, of course, related to products, right? We do buy products in the end. But we could also argue that semantically or from a logic perspective, they rather belong to the general shop idea. So now we might be back to actually using a shop controller and a new admin controller so that we can split our logic by these two sections. Alternatively, you could of course also think about using a products controller and a shop controller and have everything related to products only in the products controller and things like cart and checkout in the shop controller. But I will go for this setup. Now that of course means that my two admin related routes, get add product and post add product, should be removed from the shop.js file and go into the admin.js file. This makes more sense. I will also need my model here though, so let's take that import and also add it here in the admin.js file. This has implications for my routes, because in the admin routes I'm still importing the shop controller. Well, this should now become the admin controller, and therefore I should also rename it to admin controller up here and then replace it down there. And a similar thing needs to be done in the shop.js file in the routes folder. There we import the shop controller, which is good, but I should also name it shop controller then, and then of course also replace that. So this looks a bit cleaner to me. And with that, we can now also hook up our other routes. For this, of course, we first of all need to add them though. So let's start with shop.js. And there I will export a new page. And that should be my get index function here. There I want to render the index page. So I will get my middleware function here. And in there, of course, I also want to fetch some products and render a view. For now, I will therefore simply copy the logic from get products. So for now, the two pages are the same, but I will render shop index here. So using that index page view here. And even if we have the same products on there, we can of course work on the view and show a different starting text there for the starting page, anything like that. Okay, so now we got get index and get products. And if we go to the routes file, this means that for /anything, I actually want to load the get index function here in my controller because that is the starting page. And it's for /products that I want to load get products instead. We also need to load the cart and checkout pages. And therefore, let's go back to the shop controller. And there we got get index and get products. I will export something new. And that will be get cart. And there again, request, response, next is what I have here. And I will render a new view here. And that view will be shop/cart, pointing at the cart EJS file in the shop folder. And I will pass some data to it. For example, I need to set the path to /cart. By the way, for product list here, I also need to set it to /products because that is the path we're checking for in the navigation. We can also change the title here maybe to all products, and on the starting page, I leave it at shop. I pass the products to both views. I don't really need that code anymore. That is a relic we have from the handlebars times. We don't need that, so we can remove that. Now for the cart view, I will therefore also add a page title. And there I will simply say your cart. And that is it for now. Later we'll also add or load the cart items, but let's not focus on that for the moment. Last but not least, let's load the checkout page with get checkout. And there we have a request, a response, and next. And here I then also render a view. The view here is shop checkout. And then we need to pass some data where I set the path to /checkout and where I also set the page title to checkout so that all our views get the data they should need. Now that's looking good. Let's go back to the shop.js file in the routes folder then. And there we can use these new routes. For the cart route, we can use shop controller get cart. And for checkout, we can use shop controller get checkout. The two new controller functions we created. Now we're almost done with the controllers and the routes, at least the basic setup. Let's now go to admin.js. And there we also have one route, products. So let's go to the admin.js in the controllers folder. And there I will add a new route, exports get products is my normal middleware function. And here I basically want to do the same as I do in get products in the shop. Here I simply want to fetch all products and then render my view. So I will copy that code, go to admin.js and put that into this route. Fetch all products, but of course then render a different view. I want to render admin/products. So this view here should be rendered. I will also name it admin products and the path will be /admin/products to mark that correctly in the navigation. With all that set up, if we go back and reload, we see a white page, which is a good sign because it's not an error. And we do see a white page because actually for /nothing, which is the route I'm on here, we load or we execute get index in the shop controller. And this actually yields us shop index, which happens to be an empty EJS view. So therefore we see an empty page. Makes sense. Let's take the code from product list EJS and copy it into index EJS. And if we leave it as it is and we reload, we now see shop, we see the products. The same is the case for the products page because they share the same code for now. Cart is empty again. And therefore we should add some content there too. At least we should include the head and the navigation so that we see something. So let's go to cart EJS and add that include of the head. We don't need product CSS here for now. We got the body start and then we got the navigation. And then let's simply also add end EJS so that we have a valid HTML document. With that added, if I reload this route here, we also see cart with nothing on. Add product should still work and admin products won't work. Let's copy the code from cart EJS and let's head over to products in the admin folder, in the views folder, paste it in there so that we at least see that. And therefore, if I now click on admin products, it looks like it tries to render the 404 page, but has an error there. Now, that means two things. For one, our route seems to be wrong. In admin.js in the routes folder, /products should be right. Yeah, but I didn't hook up my admin controller there. So we should add admin controller get products here in admin.js in the routes folder. And on the other hand, also our 404 page had an issue because there we see that the path is not defined. So what I'm missing here is that for my 404 controller, the error controller to be precise, I also need to add a path here because I try to extract that path in my navigation, and therefore I also should set a path here, and I can set it to /404. Doesn't really matter, it just needs to be there. So now reloading works because that's admin products, but now even an unknown route will work again. So this is looking good. Also note that the active item is displayed correctly in the navigation, and therefore we made a huge step forward. We added a bunch of views, the fitting routes and controller actions, even though they don't do that much yet. Now it's time to work a bit on the views and add a bit of logic already. Time for more logic. And with which logic do we want to start? We could add more logic to add product, for example, so that we finally can not just add a title, but actually also an image, a price, and the description text here. So to do that, first of all, I'll work on my model here. In this model, I want to make sure that we don't just work with the title here, but that I actually initialize a new product with my title, and I will now rename it here as an argument. You probably got the point that these two names don't have to be equal, but it's easier to understand the constructor if we give it a title that makes sense or a name that makes sense. So I got my title here. Now, a product will also have an image URL. Later in the course, we'll also add image upload. For now, let's take a finished URL of some image in the web. It also needs a description and a price. And then here, I will simply store all that data in properties. Image URL will be stored. The description will be stored. And the price will be stored. Not description, price, like this. With all that, future products we add to our file will have all that data in them, and data we fetch or products we fetch will have too. Now we just need to work on our add product view and make sure we got more inputs to fetch that additional data. And for this, let's simply copy that form control and add an additional one. We're fetching the title. Now, as we just worked on the model, we'll also need an image URL. And I'll simply fetch this as some text input for now. Again, we'll add an image upload later in the course. So here I will get my image URL, name that field image URL, and optionally also assign an ID here for best accessibility. Now I'll copy that again. And here I will not add an input, but instead here I want to fetch the description. Or let's actually fetch the price first, so it stays an input actually. And here I want to have a price. Now this can be of type number, and I will give this here an ID of price and also a name of price. And now I will add one more form control, and that should be my description. So here, this is for my description, for the element with the description ID. It gets the label description, and now this is not an input. Instead, it is a text area, and that text area has a name of description and an ID of description, and it also has, let's say, 5 rows here. If we add all that and we go to add product, this is the form we see. Doesn't look too bad, but the description field doesn't look good. Well, that is a styling thing, and we can quickly fix that in the public folder by going to forms CSS. I want to give it the same styling as our normal input has. So here, where I have form control input, let's add form control text area with a white space in between. And let's also add that rule or that selector for this rule here. And also down there for this rule, I will add text area and then the focus pseudo selector. And with that, if we now reload, this looks much better. So now we got all these fields here, which we need to add a product, and these are automatically added to the request, which is sent to the backend, because we are using regular HTML inputs in a form, and we assigned names. So now we can extract all that data by the names we assign to our input fields here. And with that, let's actually go back to our controller, to the admin controller, where we have post add product, and there we create a new product. I do extract the title here. Now let's do this in a more structured way to make it easier to read. I do extract my title here and store it in a constant title, constant because I never overwrite the value in this function. I will then also add my image URL, which I extract from request body, image URL. Now make sure to type this in exactly the same way, using the same casing as you assigned the name here. And the same is true for the price and the description. So here I'll also add a price field and extract the price, and of course also extract my description. And now with that data extracted here, we can pass the title, we can pass the image URL, we can pass the description, watch the order you defined in the constructor, and we can pass the price. And now we create a product with all that data. Now with that, in the next step, let's also extract that data and show it when we show all products. We're now storing a product with all the data we need. Now we should also display all that real data and don't show any dummy data anymore. So for that, let's go to our product list EJS file, which is one of the views where we do display all products. And there we already output the real product title, but that's it. The image source, for example, is something we should now also replace. We can simply add our EJS expression in there and output image URL. And this will be a string that should be a valid URL, so this should be displayable. Now for the alternative text, we can also use the title again. So I simply copied the EJS expression up there. For the price, let's say it's always dollars. So I will keep the dollar sign here as hard-coded text and then output product price. And for the description here, I will of course also replace the dummy text with my description as it is saved in the product. Now all old products will not fulfill this new structure. So in the data folder in products.json, I will actually remove them all from that array here so that it's an empty array again. With that back in product list, this is looking good. Now in index.js, we have the same logic, so we can simply copy that and back in index.js, simply replace it. Now, if I reload my app, on shop and products, we got no products, but if I add a new one, this is a test product or simply a book. Let's search an image. I picked a URL here and insert it here. Then let's add a price, $19.99. And this is an awesome book. Sounds like a good title. Now you can press add product. And right now, this does not support decimal numbers. To fix this, we can change something in the add product view. There on the number input, we simply have to add a step attribute and set the step to 0.01. This means you can have, well, 2 decimal places essentially and increment in this step size. I'll save this but not reload. For now, I'll simply go with a number without decimal places to not lose my other data and hit add product. And indeed, on the starting page, it's now showing this product with all the data I entered. So now we improved that and we made a major step forward. Therefore, on both these pages, obviously we see it. Let's now, of course, also work on making sure that as an admin, we also see the products here and we then not just see them, but we can also edit or delete them. That will be the next step. So let's work on the admin side then. We got a products.js file, and in the end I want to render my products there. So what we can do is we can copy the product list.js file content, and in products.js in the admin area, we can copy that in. If I now reload this page, we see the same as we see on shop and products, but obviously I want to show different buttons there, let's say, so that we can edit or delete them there. And of course, we could even change the whole way we display the products, but for now, let's focus on the logic and less on how we display that. So here, I have my add to cart button. Now time to change this maybe to a edit button. And let's add a second button where I say delete. With that, if we reload, these two buttons are now there. Now obviously they don't do anything if I click them, just as the add to cart button doesn't do anything, by the way. So as a next step, I want to make sure I can load this to edit it. And now to do that, I first of all need to make sure that clicking this button does send a request. And actually, I want to send a simple get request and get onto another page. We could change this to a link with a reference to another page like this. If we do that, doesn't look too bad. Styling changed a bit because, well, some things would have to be adjusted, and I will do that later. Now we got that link, which should of course now lead us to /admin/added product, like this. If I do that, we get to the page not found page because we haven't registered a route yet. And the reason for this is that we don't just need to go to /added product, but obviously we want to go to a very different route here. We want to make sure that we go to a route where we know which product to edit. So actually we'll need to pass something dynamic as part of that URL. It would be great if we could pass something like added product for the ID 1, and then we can retrieve that ID in the route that we're loading so that we know which product we need to fetch from the database or from our file for now. Now this is some logic we'll add in the next module though, because some people might have skipped this module. So let's ignore this for now and let's focus on deleting. But to be honest, we'll face the same problem there because we want to delete a specific product and not all products, obviously. So therefore here, we can also add a link, but technically a delete process should not send a GET request to some route. Instead here, I will simply wrap this in a form, which leads to admin delete product and sends a post request there to indicate that we really want to change something and not just load something or display something. And then I wrap my button in there and give it a type submit so that it does submit this. So now we got that connected. And therefore on admin products, you see that changed due to the form I added. We'll work on the styling, or I will work on the styling between modules. Both styles or both routes will not work because we haven't implemented them, but we'll do that later. The same problem can be found for our add to cart here, by the way. There, I also want to do something which needs extra information. I need to have the ID of the product I want to add, and I want to add it to the route we're loading or to the path we're loading. So here I also want to have a form which goes to something like add to cart. We don't have that route yet. And then adds a method, post. And then here I will have a button inside of that form. And obviously I don't just want to go to add to cart, but I would want something like add to cart 1 so that I know which product with which ID to add to a cart. But again, this is something I will do in the next module, just as for the admin routes. So for now, we're pretty much done. We added more views. We restructured our controller a little bit. We practiced what we did thus far. But now, of course, the exciting thing will be when we finally start working more with dynamic data in our route paths, and when we therefore can start adding items to the cart and editing and deleting items. We'll do that over the next modules, of course. To conclude this module, I will now simply add one additional view here in the shop, and that is the orders EJS route, which is responsible for displaying orders. We don't have any yet, so I will just take my cart EJS content and put that in there so that we at least have the navigation. And obviously we could then display something in between, have some main element and say H1, nothing there, but we'll work on that obviously. And I want to add this in my navigation too. There I already have the cart. Now next to the cart, I will add one additional navigation item where I say orders, and I go to /orders, And the path here, which I check for the active CSS class, is /orders. And now, therefore, in my routes here in shop.js, I want to add a new route, which allows me to go to /orders. And this means I need a new action in my shop.js controller. There, I also want to be able to load that orders page. So I will just duplicate the get cart action here, name this get orders, like this, and then simply return shop orders, this new view I added, and then path orders. And then here also your orders, like this. And now we can go back to shop.js in the routes file and have get orders here. With that, this is looking good. If I save everything and I reload, I have this new menu item with nothing there yet. But now we're well prepared. I will make some styling changes and provide the finished code at the beginning of next module. And then we will learn how we can actually use the Express router to work with dynamic data, or in general, data in the URL, and how we can use that to retrieve specific items or interact with specific items. So for now, let's finish this module and let's move on.